The guys on my crew used to say I could sleep standing up in an orange vest, and they weren't far off. Night road maintenance does that to you. Your body learns to run on the hum of the truck and bad gas station coffee. And after a few years, the world flips so that daylight feels like the strange part and the dark feels like home. I ran a striping and signage crew for the State Highway Department for 9 years. Not the guys filling potholes, though we did that too when it was slow. Mostly we painted lines, replaced reflectors, set up the barrels and the flashing arrow boards, repainted the lane markings on the county routes that the day crews never got to. Night work, because you can't shut a lane in daylight without snarling everybody's commute. So we'd roll out around 10, work till the sky started going gray, and go home while everyone else was pouring their first cup. I want to tell you up front that I'm not a nervous guy, and I'm not somebody who believes in much. I've got a bad knee from a rollover, a divorce I earned, and a very literal way of looking at the world. When something's wrong on a road, there's a reason. Water got under the asphalt. A truck overloaded a joint. Somebody clipped a sign with a mirror. Roads are just physics and weather and people making mistakes. That's the whole job. You find the cause, you fix it, you move on. So when I tell you about the detour, I need you to understand, I spent a long time looking for the cause. I'm still looking. That's part of why I can't let it go. There's a stretch of old state road out in the western part of our district, up where the land buckles into hills and the road follows a river valley. Route 9. 2 lanes, no shoulder to speak of, guardrail on the riverside and rock cut on the other. It's a bad road in good weather and a nightmare in fog, and that valley makes its own fog. Cold air sitting down in the low ground, river throwing up moisture, and some nights it comes in so thick your high beams just bounce back at you like a white wall. We hated working 9. Everybody did. The first time I saw the detour, I didn't think anything of it, and that's the honest truth. We were headed out to repaint a curve warning near mile 11, fog already settling in, and about a mile before our work site there was a detour set up on the right. Standard stuff. Type 3 barricades across a side road, the reflective panels, a detour sign with the arrow, a couple of those solar-powered flashers blinking amber in the murk. It fed onto a little road that peeled off down toward the river. I remember thinking, didn't know anybody else had a crew out here tonight. 'Cause that's what a detour means. It means work. Somebody set that up, which means somebody in my department, on my district, had a job going, and I hadn't heard about it. That's unusual but not impossible. Left hand not knowing what the right's doing, that's government work. We did our striping, we packed up, we drove home. I meant to ask about the other crew and I forgot, the way you forget things at 5 in the morning. 2 weeks later we were back out on 9, and the fog was in again, and there was the detour. Same spot, roughly a mile before mile 11. Same barricades, same sign, same amber flashers feeding down toward that side road along the river. This time I noticed something that snagged on me. There was no work site. A detour routes traffic around work. So somewhere past those barricades, on the main road, there should have been a crew, or at least a closed section, cones, equipment, a hole in the road, something. I drove the whole rest of Route 9 that night, all the way to the district line, and there was nothing. No work, no closure, nothing to detour around. A detour that doesn't detour you around anything is just a road closure that sends you somewhere. And I didn't like that because it meant somebody was routing traffic off the state route and down a river road for no reason I could see. That's a liability problem. If a driver follows an official-looking detour into a ditch, that's on us. So I did the responsible thing. I reported it. I told my supervisor, a decent guy named Petrie, that there was an unauthorized detour set up on Route 9 near mile 10, feeding onto a side road, and it needed to come down before somebody got hurt. Petrie pulled the work orders for the whole district. There was no scheduled work on Route 9, no permit for a closure. No detour authorized anywhere in that valley, which meant, as far as the paperwork was concerned, that detour did not exist. Nobody had set it up, because nobody was allowed to set it up, because there was no reason to. Now, that happens. People steal barricades. Kids set up fake closures as a prank. A private contractor forgets to file. So Petrie told me to take the setup down next time I was out there and log the equipment numbers so we could figure out where it came from. Reasonable. That's exactly what I would have said. The thing was, I was only ever out on 9 when there was fog. That's not superstition, that's just how it worked out, and it took me a while to even notice the pattern. We got sent to 9 for the same kinds of jobs, faded lines and dead reflectors, and those are worse in the low wet valley, so we got scheduled there on the damp nights, which were the foggy nights. So every time I was in a position to see that detour, the fog was already in. The next clear night, we happened to route through 9 for a different job. I looked for it. The side road was there, an old gravel thing running down toward the water, gated with a rusty farm gate that clearly hadn't opened in years. No barricades, no sign, no flashers. Just a gravel road with a locked gate, exactly like it should be. Nothing to take down, nothing to log. I sat with that. A detour that only stood when the fog came in. I told myself the fog was hiding it on clear nights, which makes no sense. Or that somebody was setting it up and tearing it down on a schedule that happened to match the weather, which makes even less sense. I want to be clear that I kept reaching for the ordinary answer. I just kept coming up empty. Then one of my guys, a kid named Reuben, said something that stuck a hook in me for good. We were parked on the shoulder eating in the truck, fog all around us, and I mentioned the detour, half joking, asking if he'd ever seen a crew working past it. And Reuben, who was young and didn't have my filters yet, said, "You mean the one that goes to Hallett?" I asked him what he meant. He said his grandmother grew up around here, and there used to be a little town down in the valley called Hallett, Milltown, on the river. He said the road behind those barricades was the old road to it. I asked him where Hallett was now, and he said it wasn't anywhere. The mill closed sometime in the 50s, the young people left, and then when they widened and rerouted Route 9 up onto the higher ground in the 60s, they bypassed the town completely. The old road down to Hallett got gated off and left to rot. The town just dried up and emptied out. Not flooded, not burned, just bypassed. Cut off from the new road and forgotten, until there was nothing left but a few foundations and a church with no roof. A detour, if you think about it plainly, is a road doing one job. It's the road saying, the way through is closed, take the old way instead. That's when I stopped sleeping right. Because here's the piece that I couldn't file under anything ordinary. A detour is a promise. When you follow a detour, you are trusting that the people who set it up know something you don't, that the main way is blocked, and that this other way is safe, and that if you follow the amber arrows, you'll come out fine on the other side. That's the entire psychology of the thing. People obey detours without question. They'll drive off a perfectly good highway onto a dirt track in the dark, because an official orange sign told them to, because the sign carries the weight of the whole department behind it, the whole idea that somebody responsible is in charge. I've watched thousands of drivers do it. They never doubt it, not once. And somebody or something had set up a detour that only appeared in the fog, sending drivers down a dead road to a town that stopped existing 60 years ago. I decided I was going to catch it. Not walk down it, I'm not stupid, but observe it, document it, find the cause, because there's always a cause. So the next foggy night we were scheduled near 9, I went early, alone, in my personal truck, and I parked up on the rise where I could see the mouth of that side road, and I waited for the fog to thicken. It came in the way it does there, not rolling but rising, the low ground filling up like a bathtub, until the valley was gone and the road was a gray tunnel. And I watched the spot where the side road met the highway, and there was nothing there, gravel and a locked gate, and then there was fog too thick to see through, and then when it thinned for a second the barricades were up, the sign, the flashers, blinking amber into the white, not assembled while I watched. Just there, on the other side of a thick patch, the way a thing is there when you weren't looking, and there were taillights going down it. A car, an ordinary car, red taillights, easing down past the barricades onto the old Hallett Road, following the detour the way anybody would. I hadn't seen it come up the highway, it was just on the detour, descending, and the fog closed over it, and the taillights got smaller and dimmer, and then they didn't get any smaller, they just faded, in place, like the car was driving away and standing still at the same time, until there was nothing but amber flashers in the gray. I told myself it was a local, somebody who lived down there, if anyone still did, but there was nobody down there. That was the whole point of Hallett. Nobody was down there. I went back to the department and I did what I know how to do, which is research a road. I pulled the old maps, the real ones, the historical route surveys in the district archive. Hallett was on them, up through 1961. The road to it was a state-maintained route, part of Old 9 before the realignment. Then on the 1964 maps, the new alignment appears up on the ridge, and the old road down to Hallett is marked abandoned, and Hallett itself just stops being labeled. Not marked as ruins, not marked as anything, it's simply not printed anymore. The town didn't get destroyed on the map, it got undrawn. But here's the thing I found that I still can't explain, and it's the reason I finally went to somebody higher than Petrie. In the maintenance logs, the old ones, going back decades, there were entries for Detour setups on Route 9, signed off by crews I mostly didn't recognize, guys long retired or dead, and they clustered, not evenly. They clustered on certain nights, and when I cross-referenced those dates against the weather records the district keeps for scheduling, every single one of them fell on a heavy fog night in that valley. Somebody had been logging that detour for 50 years, setting it up or finding it set up, and writing it down, night after foggy night, decade after decade, a detour with no work order, no permit, no reason, feeding traffic down to a town that wasn't there. And the logs never questioned it, they just recorded it, the way you record anything routine. Detour in place, mile 10, route 9, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I took the logs to the district engineer, a woman near retirement who'd been in that office longer than anyone. I laid it all out, the setups, the fog correlation, the fact that none of it was authorized and never had been. I expected her to be alarmed, or at least to help me figure out who'd been doing it. She wasn't alarmed, but she also wasn't like Petrie, brushing it off. She listened to the whole thing, and then she asked me one question. She asked if I'd counted them. I said, counted what? She said the setups, the nights. Whether the detour went up every foggy night, or only some of them. I hadn't thought to check that. I went back and I did, and she was right to ask, because it wasn't every fog. Plenty of foggy nights on 9 with no detour at all. It only appeared on some of them, and when I finally found what those nights had in common, it took the ground out from under me. The detour went up on the nights there was a fatal accident somewhere in the district. Not on 9, anywhere. A rollover on the interstate 40 miles away. A drunk into a tree on some county route. A pedestrian, a motorcycle, whatever. On the nights somebody died on the roads in our district. If there was fog in the Hallett Valley, the detour appeared. On the foggy nights nobody died. The gate stayed locked and the road stayed empty. I checked it against years of records. It held, every single time. I understand how that sounds. I understood it then. But I'm a man who looks for the cause, and I had found a correlation so clean, it stopped being a correlation and started being a rule. A road that opened a way to a dead town on the nights the district lost someone. And traffic went down it, taillights I couldn't account for, easing down into the fog and fading in place. I think about who those drivers were. I've never let myself finish the thought, but I think about it. A detour tells you the way ahead is closed and offers you the old way instead. And on the nights the roads took somebody, a detour opened that only the fog could hold up, sending someone down to a town that had been waiting, empty and bypassed and undrawn from the maps, for 60 years. I think Hallett didn't die when they rerouted the highway. I think it just lost its road. And I think something down there has been patient about getting one back. I stopped working 9. I told Petrie my knee couldn't take the valley damp anymore, which was true enough, and he moved me to the eastern routes and I ran out my time there and took an early retirement the first year I was eligible. I don't drive that valley now. I don't drive in fog if I can help it, anywhere. But I'll tell you the part that keeps me up. the part that made me finally say all this out loud to somebody. The district engineer retired the year after I talked to her, and before she left, she sent me a copy of the current maintenance log for Route 9. No note, no explanation, just the printout in an envelope. I almost didn't look at it. When I did, the recent entries were all the ordinary stuff. Striping, reflectors, my old crew's work, Ruben's name in there now as a lead. And one line, from a foggy night that spring, a night I later confirmed a young man died in a wreck out on the interstate. The line read, "Detour in place, mile 10, Route 9, standard, same as 50 years of them." Except this one had a note in the observations field, which those entries never have. Somebody had written, in the log, in the calm shorthand we use for everything, driver declined detour, waved off, continued on main route, and next to it the crew initials for who made the observation. They weren't Ruben's. They weren't anybody currently on that crew. They were mine. I never made that entry. I wasn't there that night. I've been retired 2 years. But the log says I was on Route 9 in the fog, and it says I watched somebody refuse to take the detour and drive on past it, safe, up the main road, into the clear. And I've decided that's the only good news in any of this. That the log has me down as the one who saw a driver say no. That whatever runs that road, whatever keeps that patient book, it has me recorded on the right side of it, waving people on, telling them the way ahead is fine. Don't turn off. Keep going. You don't have to take the old road down. I hope that's true. I hope when the fog comes into that valley, on the nights the roads go hungry, there's a version of me up on the rise in an orange vest, standing in the amber light, telling everyone who slows down at those barricades the one thing I understand now that I never did on the job. The detour is official. The sign is real. The department is behind it. And you should not, under any circumstances, follow it.